Hello, everybody. Where are we at? There we are. Welcome back to the Scoop Slam Report here today on YouTube. I am, of course, the Anthony Leonetti with the Anthony Leonetti Show right here on YouTube. We're looking good. We're looking good. I see we got James in the chat. What's up, James? Let me see if I can pop up these chats without the computer lagging. So we'll try that out, see how that looks over here. Oh, looks good. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Let me enter here. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about before we get into this episode today. It says error on my end. I don't know why it says error, but we are running good on YouTube because I got it on another monitor here. But there is a few things I did want to talk about today. Now, before we get into any of the stuff I've mentioned in the title or rumors, any of that stuff, Robert Martyr was supposed to come on today. I'm sure a lot of you saw like the original post and the original stream because I had everything set and ready to go for that to take place and to happen. And unfortunately, he had some kind of schedule conflict that popped up last minute. So I don't know when he's going to be back on the show because I would really like him to be on. Um, and I hate not delivering for you guys when it comes to doing interviews. That's why a lot of the time I've chosen to not do them live and do them pre-recorded just in case something like this does come up. But I'm hoping for the future that he will be on at a later date at some point and come on. But for now, that will be TBD, to be determined when he'll be back on the show. And I definitely am gonna keep in touch with him, and hopefully we will have him again. Like I said, because he is a rising star in the world of professional wrestling. I was really looking forward to having him here today, but unfortunately, we're not gonna get that yet. But hopefully, somewhere down the road, we will get that. Gianna C in the chat. Happy Thursday. Set looks awesome as always. I'm glad set looks good. We're looking really good. And like you said, James, it does suck, but it will happen down the road. It's not my first rodeo when it comes to doing this thing. And life happens. It's been a crazy week for myself, so I completely understand when things do come up and other opportunities come up as well. So, with that being said, with Martyr not being here, this does give us an opportunity to talk about a lot of the landscape of pro wrestling right now, which does bring up some really interesting topics because with Money in the Bank, there was a lot of different outcomes that happened. There was a heel turn in AEW with Mariah May. There was a signing for WWE with Stephanie Vakir, which was very interesting because she was with CMLL. Sorry, Mr. Linnell. And then she was also with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I believe she was also a champion and a double champion. I can't lie, I haven't watched too many of her matches before. I know that she took on Mercedes at Forbidden Door, but now she's going to be with WWE. She's going to be with NXT. And that was kind of a shock to me that all this came about because she vacated, or I guess the other term that was used in the news was stripped of the belts that she did have. And Shawn Michaels, I believe, confirmed it yesterday that she was going to be joining NXT. So when it just comes to the wrestling bubble, I mean, there's been so much taking place. Not too much, on my, from what I've seen, there's not too much speculation going on right now that I can really see. Obviously, there's a lot of confirmed stuff like Rhea Ripley coming back, CM Punk returning at Money in the Bank, John Cena announcing his retirement tour. We had Joe Hendry on NXT, which Um, he was on NXT before, but this was a little bit of a different role because he had a bigger role on the show teaming up with Trick Williams against Ethan Page and Shawn Spears. So, that was a pretty big deal to see him there, and he may walk out the TNA World Heavyweight Champion when TNA Slammiversary happens. He's in a six-man match with Nick Nemeth, Moose. I want to say who else? It was Josh Alexander. There was two others I'm forgetting. I think Frankie Kazarian and I think Steve Macklin. So those guys are in that match, and I'm sure it's going to be a really good match. I might even get the pay per view to see. We might even talk a little bit about it. James believes in Joe Hendry. We all believe in Joe Hendry. I don't know why the chat didn't show up. There we go. Oh, nope. Popped up WWE news and rumors. Where is the chat? Oh, there we go. He believes in Joe Hendry. There you go. He believes. Um, so that was kind of cool. Also, I talked about this a little bit last episode or 2 episodes ago when we talked about the Hardys. But Joe Hendry, man, he is so over. I got some fan footage from him at the 2300 Arena at the Impact tapings. What's up, Jake? How you doing, my man? Um, but he's going to be someone that I think WWE eventually does sign. And when I talked about Stephanie earlier, you know, when she left the way that she did, the obviously kind of like the wrestling news media is kind of making it out to be a little bit like, she was stripped of the belts. She kind of went to WWE and kind of passed up on AEW and passed up on New Japan. I am kind of hoping that when it comes to wrestling partnerships, especially for the future, that this kind of thing is not going to be something that is reoccurring where certain companies will partner up with other companies and they will take the talent that is there. Joe Hendry is a great example of this because, Joe Hendry being one of the most over people on social media right now, getting featured on NXT and TNA is a very big deal. But WWE have spotlighted people on their NXT programming that I think they want to sign that could be big players, in that sense. So, and one of the things I'm talking about when it comes to this is you look at the New Japan roster that they had a couple of years ago. AEW has Okada. AEW has Jay White. Now, I'm not saying that AEW is poaching this talent and running New Japan dry. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't want that, to just be a recurring theme uh, with wrestling company partnerships because I think equally speaking, companies should have main event people and should be allowed to have main event people and still work alongside um, those companies. I mean, MLW, there was a big lawsuit between MLW and WWE where MLW accused WWE of contract tampering. So when you look at things like that, it's a little concerning. I don't want to see, WWE, they're doing more partnerships with other companies. How much of WWE, how much is WWE doing this for those other companies? Probably not really that much at all. It's probably for their own gain. Um, it does show that they're open for business, which I do like. But again, if you are spotlighting Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry, the Rascals, there's something to be said about that. With those talents showing up a lot more. And I'm just wondering, where is this going to go? Because you do have a Worlds Collide idea with WWE and TNA. You could easily do that with NXT and TNA and do a Worlds Collide show. I believe AJ Styles is wrestling in Pro Wrestling Noah, and He's made the trip to Japan. I forget what exact day that is. I believe it might be this weekend. Somebody could fact check me on that. But we have a lot of talent. I mean, even before a couple of years ago, Nakamura wrestled Muda. There's, WWE are doing this thing where they're going to other companies, and a lot of people like to call it forbidden door. At the end of the day, these companies are working together, which is a good thing for wrestling. I just don't want to see the big companies somewhat take advantage of the wrestlers that are in these smaller companies and then eventually are going to be scooped out of them. Now, obviously, it's out of these wrestling companies' control whatever these talents decide to do in the end. Like if Joe Hendry decides, I do want to go to WWE and, work a contract, or I want to go to AEW, they're going to probably take some of that offer into consideration. So again, I'm just hoping with this whole situation that WWE aren't going to try to just poach all this talent because WWE did have a partnership with ECW and it was pretty equal because they didn't just want to take the talent, they sent talent there as well. That's why Al Snow in ECW was so over. He got from WWF to ECW, found a gimmick, and then went back to WWF. So they kind of traded some talent and traded some things around. And, I think that would be fine, for this partnership. And it would be interesting to see where this partnership goes, whether they do run a PLE down the road or not for, TNA versus NXT. But it is certainly must see television when you do see other wrestlers from other promotions show up at these companies. It's certainly really interesting. Um, there hasn't been an NXT, presence at the 2300 arena since the Evolve show that happened a couple years ago. That was on Peacock, or the WWE Network, I guess at the time. It's still on Peacock if you go watch it. I'm one of the people in the front row for that show. That's where Adam Cole defended the NXT title against Akira Tozawa. Drew Gulak took on Matt Riddle, and Charlie Dempsey, William Regal's son, wrestled at the TNA tapings. So it was pretty interesting to see that kind of transpire. Um, in that arena in itself, but to see, how WWE are doing this with TNA and with other companies down the road. And, I am excited. I just hope it doesn't get too much of WWE taking advantage of, those points. So, and yeah, I can't remember the name of the faction off the top of my head, but the faction is pretty good. It was a really good match. It is noticeable how WWE and AEW have real power over the rest. It's important that they're good players in the market. Indeed, yeah, I think that they should be good players because wrestling shouldn't be a monopoly like other businesses. There should be choices. There should be different avenues for people to live, to make a living. And a lot of these companies offer those things. So that should be something that a lot of these companies take into consideration when doing these things. So, I mean, shout out to her. She got to live out her dream job, and now she's going to be on NXT. And it'll be interesting to see where that goes from here. As far as WWE and AEW television, I feel like there's been a lot that's been transpiring. You have John Cena's retirement, which I don't know. I think it hit people hard um, because he came out and we thought it was just going to be like another surprise. But when he came out with the towel, the last time is now. I think it just hit people because for a large part of wrestling fans, he was a big part in the Ruthless Aggression era, the PG era. He was the company guy. Now, was he always liked? No, no. Not a lot of people like Cena in his run when he was winning a lot. I would agree that I think he, you know, should have put like Wade Barrett over and a few other people. But, nonetheless, Cena has been a guy that carried the WWE flag for so long. It's one of those things where when I think of WWE, I do think of John Cena because he was the company guy. He still is in a way. He still is a big staple of WWE. And I think that transitioned to Roman Reigns with his tribal chief run, you know. But with for Cena's case, Cena was, the guy for 20 years doing it full time. And it's quite crazy to think about next year's WrestleMania lineup because you could have John Cena, CM Punk, and The Rock all on the road to WrestleMania. Pretty big to think about. Now, if you've, keeping up with the channel, I did make a video about John Cena and his retirement tour. A lot of people thought when he said WrestleMania will be my last, people thought that WrestleMania was going to be where his last match is at. That is incorrect. John Cena will be wrestling all the way through 2025. Now, he's got a lot of dates, 30 to 40 dates through 2025. So when you think about it, Cena is going to have his last Royal Rumble, his last Chamber, his last WrestleMania, like he said, but he'll also have his last Money in the Bank, his last SummerSlam. He's gonna what it looks to be. It looks like he's gonna be full time for a long time in WWE for that last year, and that's gonna be where it kind of ends at. Which to me, um, it's it's kind of like a bittersweet thing because I'm sad that his run is coming to an end, but you're kind of grateful for those memories and those matches that and the moments too that John Cena had. Um, let's put up James's comment up here. There's been there's been a bit of a generational change over the last few years. Cena retiring makes sense. I'd rather him retire now than go for too long, like say the Undertaker. Um, and th- I'm Thank you for bringing up Undertaker. Undertaker, his retirement kind of tour, it wasn't really a tour, but you knew he was winding down with matches. When Undertaker was still wrestling, I would probably say after he wrestled Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, I thought he should have just retired. I thought he should have just retired, and that would have been it. That would have been it, and it would have kind of been over. I was not a big fan of the match, but I just thought it's time. Like he's done in the ring. Then he came back and he did those series of matches. Some of them actually were pretty good, and then some of them weren't as good. And that's covered a lot in that Last Ride documentary that came out a couple years ago, um, which is a really good watch. But when it came to Taker, I was in the camp of he should just retire. But I look back at those memories, and to me, you don't realize like this could be Undertaker's last match. To tell a quick story, I was at Extreme Rules 2019 when he teamed up with Roman against Drew and Shane McMahon. Wasn't a big fan of it. I saw him make his last pay per view appearance when he was an active wrestler at Elimination Chamber. It was right before COVID-19 happened. It was the last pay per view with fans, before COVID-19 started, obviously. And, he came out to help Aleister Black beat AJ Styles. Why I'm mentioning this is because I didn't really, take in the fact that this could be it for this wrestler. And I think it could be said when it comes to, fans of football or baseball, when they see, kind of people have their last stand almost, their last game. It's it's kind of surreal almost to think about when these things do happen. So The point I'm trying to make is that I think a lot of people, there's been the "please retire" chant, that people have used on wrestlers. I don't like doing that. I think, it's ultimately up to the wrestlers when they decide they wanna retire, but it's also a thing of you don't realize sometimes when you're in the good moments of something, and for a lot of the time I was watching wrestling at the point when Taker was winding down, I didn't realize, like, this is kinda it for him. Sure, the match with Goldberg and DX, wasn't good. I could say that, really, really strongly because they just weren't good matches. But I mean, we got him and AJ Styles. It was the perfect way to go out and close a great chapter of The Undertaker's career. So I hope that kind of happens with John Cena. I hope people realize, and I think people already do, is that John Cena's retiring. He's going to go to Hollywood and he's going to make a lot of money and he's going to be a big success in Hollywood full time without coming back to wrestling, other than coming out maybe for Hall of Fames or certain appearances. But he won't be wearing jorts. He won't be wearing the T-shirt and the hat anymore. It's it's kinda big to think about. So, when you see John Cena wrestle, take into consideration that these are gonna be his final matches. Think about those nostalgic moments that you had with this character, and this character is starting to go away. Now that we got that kinda out of the way, and I said that, I wanna talk about who John Cena could wrestle along this run. There's been people talking about him and Randy Orton wrestling. I think that's perfect. At some point, I do think Randy Orton is going to turn heel on Cody Rhodes. I just have a feeling that that's going to happen. Um, you know, whether that happens now or in the future, I'm not sure. But with Orton being a heel, I think they could totally run John Cena versus Randy Orton again. John Cena versus Randy Orton is a must have in this final retirement tour. Um, One final match between those two, I think, is fine. It doesn't need to be three matches, doesn't need to be five, just one match. Maybe even his final one is against Randy Orton. Now, I would have loved to seen John Cena and Edge. I put up a community post a couple days ago, and I wonder if I could find it actually uh, on here, but I need to watch my OBS. I put up a community thing basically where um, talked about when or basically John Cena's kind of his last matches winding down and kind of who my choices would be for some of those people. And let's see if we can pull that up right here. I'll zoom in a little bit and then we'll put this up on OBS. Um, where are we at here? Here we go, screen capture. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. What is it? What is it? What it doesn't like me sometimes, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Um, I can't. There we go. So I don't know why it's so massive, but there you go. If you had to pick John Cena's final WWE opponent in WWE, who are you picking? Here are some people I would pick to be his final match. And obviously, I got Cena's picture here. Let's see if we can scroll down a little bit to get more Cena. So Orton, obviously, to me, would be a big choice to just have across this final run. Um, you know, I really think that him and Orton should have one more go around because of the history they have. Um, CM Punk, I think CM Punk, as long as he stays healthy, would be another guy that you could totally see him and Punk wrestle. I think these two would be fine in a ring together one last time. You got Adam Edge Copeland. Somebody asked me, why did you put Edge in this like list? And the reason why I say that is because number one, you never say never with professional wrestling. Everyone knows that slogan. But to me, Edge wanted a well, not even to me, but Edge wanted a another match with John Cena before his career ended. I don't know how long Edge's contract is with AEW. I don't know any of that stuff. But if there was a match that I would like to see between AEW and WWE, if they crossovered and they kissed and maked up, you know, not saying that the Tony Khan Triple H would, but I'm just saying the companies got together and were friendly, that Edge and John Cena should be something that they could consider doing, given the history. It would just be really nice. And I'm sure Edge would want that too, as well as Cena. And then you also have Cody Rhodes, which I think, given Cody could be still the champion, um, you could definitely see Cody, defend the WWE Championship against, Cody Rhodes defend the WWE Championship against John Cena. I think that could be something that WWE could definitely do as like one last chance for Cena to be the champion. We got a comment here. Let me turn the chat back on. I think Cena's final match should be a heel LA Knight that would get him over, says Rick. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know if LA Knight's going to turn heel anytime soon, if I'm being honest. I don't know if I'd want LA Knight to be a heel in WWE right now. I definitely think you might get to see John Cena versus Logan Paul. Don't think that'll be his final match. But I know, people have joked around with some other names that are kind of in the mid card right now. And I think they're going to fill this up. Cena's going to put over some talent, but Cena's also going to get a singles win. I think he will get that, at least the singles win that he's been talking about, because they've talked about that so much. John Cena hasn't been able to win a singles match in quite a long time. James said even Orton isn't going to be around that much longer, so Cena, Orton is a fair choice. Um, the other thing to consider, James, as well, is Orton said this right as he came right back to WWE after the injury, was that he wanted to wrestle another 5-10 years. So I think Orton's still going to be around for a little bit. Now, obviously, he might run more of a part-time schedule as we get, closer to him retiring. But I definitely think it's worth it to get an Orton and John Cena match in there, at least just, for one time. Other people I'd love to see, I'd love to see him step in the ring with Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins would be a great match. Um, you know, I'm trying to think of other people. I know some people might say, "Oh, you should wrestle The Rock." I don't think him and Rock really needs to happen. I think that moment at WrestleMania was more valuable than them having a match. That's just my take. Um, I mean, there's so many other people. I mean, him and AJ could have another match too. I mean, him and AJ would have a banger against each other. Rick says Seth Rollins to be a final opponent. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. Like I said, I would still personally stick to Randy Orton. I don't know if Seth would be a final opponent, but I think he would be on the road to the retirement tour. I think Cena wrestling Rollins would be great to see. Him wrestling AJ. He may even wrestle Rey Mysterio. He may even wrestle Dominic Mysterio. There's some people he hasn't wrestled yet, like LA Knight, who you mentioned. They may even do John Cena versus Drew McIntyre, which now I think would be a bigger match than it was when they did it back in 2019. There's a lot of different interesting avenues, but the other thing to consider is John Cena said he's going to be wrestling from January to December, and then that's it. Does WWE decide to have a December pay-per-view, or PLE, excuse me, they're called PLEs now, um, a December PLE to add to their pay-per-view rotation, or at least just for this year of 2025, and maybe add, maybe Starcade. Maybe Starcade. It was always in December. Maybe add Starcade. Could just be a John Cena memorial kind of show, a tribute show to John Cena. Could be something like that. I think it'd be cooler if they did bring out a big pay-per-view for John Cena's like final final match. I don't think it would just be at the Survivor Series. The other thing to consider too is I'm not saying this is going to happen, but injuries do happen in the world of professional wrestling, and like any other contact sport as well. Does John Cena, if John Cena, ooh, almost at the table, if John Cena does, get injured, does this postpone some of the tour that he's going to have? It could. It very well could. I hope not. But if it does happen, it could postpone some of his matches that he does want to have. I almost, feel like WrestleMania should be the destination where he ends his career. Um, and I almost think that, WrestleMania 42 would be that perfect destination, But again, if he wants to finish it in December, I think WWE should do something, big for Cena to have in December, which would be interesting. Mick's in the chat. He says his birthday was yesterday. Well, happy birthday, Mick. Happy birthday. Hope you had a good birthday on, what was it yesterday? Wednesday. Wednesday. Hope you had a good Wednesday birthday, Mick Thompson. But that's really what I wanted to talk about when it came to John Cena and kind of this whole retirement thing. It'll be interesting to see where he kind of goes from here and what matches are going to be on display for all of us wrestling fans in this retirement tour. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We had CM Punk return at Money in the Bank. I think a lot of people were expecting it. I kind of predicted that Punk would screw Drew McIntyre over in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and Drew McIntyre wouldn't get the Money in the Bank contract. Um, I know fans were mad that Drew won and failed to cash in, but I've talked about it on the show. I think I talked about it at the end of the show last week was, the Money in the Bank contract, I think should be a concept that should be used every other year. It just seems to be that whatever happens with it, um, it just doesn't really go the way like people kind of would hope it would. I think some people were hoping for that next big star to be built with like Carmelo Hayes or Andrade. That didn't really happen. Um, and honestly, I think the Money in the Bank is more of a crutch than it is a success to kind of have. Um, that's just my opinion, though. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying every other pay per view concept should be every other year because obviously the Royal Rumble's a staple. You got to keep the Royal Rumble, but to me, Money in the Bank I think just needs to maybe even be added back to WrestleMania. That might be a good solution, or just do it every other year. That to me would work. Um, I just don't really dig the Money in the Bank concept as a whole. But nonetheless, let's get back to Punk. Punk attacked Drew McIntyre and, kind of got his revenge. Got Drew McIntyre kind of got what was coming to him after the attack on SmackDown. And Punk, he looks good, looks like he's been training, looks like he's getting ready to be back in that ring. He's on the road to getting cleared, which I'm wondering if he was already cleared and they're just trying to like tease it a little bit now because he did do, he didn't take any bumps at Money in the Bank, but he did use a chair on Drew. So I'm kind of wondering, whether he's cleared yet or not. But if he is cleared in time, he could wrestle Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam, which is what I think WWE is doing. We talked about on the Money in the Bank prediction show, Damian Priest and Gunther, and there's definitely people online that don't think that's a world championship kind of match, but they built Gunther up to, win King of the Ring and get a one-on-one match with Damian Priest or just a one-on-one match for the world championship. And in that case, I don't think CM Punk and Drew McIntyre need the world championship. And I don't think doing Drew McIntyre and Gunther for the world title is the right way to go, or Seth Rollins and Gunther for the world title is the right way to go. I think having Gunther and Damian Priest for the world title, it's going to be a good match, and it's going to be between two guys that haven't already been established in that main event scene, for the past couple of years. Damian Priest, this is his main event year, and this is going to be Gunther's main event year because Gunther is going to win that world championship. But for a lot of guys like Cody, Punk, uh, I'll throw John Cena's name in there, but Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, they've had the main event spot. They've been the world champions. It's a new opportunity for guys that haven't had that spot to be in a world championship spot. So it's a good idea to do that match. And Drew and Punk, they do not need the world championship. If it does happen at SummerSlam, I'm fully expecting a rematch at Bad Blood. Seth Rollins has added a layer to this story as well with this whole thing with Punk. Um, so Rollins might end up costing CM Punk at some point. So I'm really digging what WWE has done with CM Punk. Now, I'm not going to talk about the drama that he had with AEW, CM Punk wise, because it's just in the past now. It's almost been a year old now. But I'll say this is that Punk in AEW was very much the main focus, the main kind of guy. In this kind of situation, CM Punk has been more of a guy that obviously he hasn't had so many matches with WWE because he got hurt at the Rumble. But to me, CM Punk is the perfect person to come in and just shock the system, like how the Undisputed Era used to say. Punk has come in and he's really screwed over Drew McIntyre so many times that their rivalry is rivalry of the year and they've not had a match yet. The pettiness from both men, the attacking, what's been said over social media, all this stuff has been so good. And it's led, Monday Night Raw to be a bigger show. Whereas, SmackDown has a lot of the Bloodline stuff, and people consider the Bloodline stuff to be top tier. Where Monday Night Raw, it has the Judgment Day, but people don't look at it as the same way. But to me, all the feuds that they've done on Raw in terms of the main event scene have helped not only the Judgment Day, but have helped the other cases of CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. It's really done a good job of building up Raw and also giving us some good feuds. And I think it's one of the reasons they brought Bad Blood back is because you have Punk and McIntyre who are ready to go at it. And you also have Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, which we don't know whether it's going to happen at SummerSlam or Bad Blood, which Rhea Ripley is another name to talk about because she returned on Raw. Rhea Ripley came in right when Dominic and Liv were about to kiss in the middle of the ring. And Ripley, stormed in, Liv ran away, and Rhea kind of confronted Dom a little bit. And, that whole scenario, what's going to happen there is going to be really interesting to see because if we do get a SummerSlam match between Rhea and Liv, Dominic Mysterio is going to have to pick who he chooses to side with, which I think what you can expect from the SummerSlam show coming up is going to be the fall of the Judgment Day. I think you're going to see the Judgment Day screw over Damian Priest, and I think Dominic Mysterio is going to pick Liv, and this is where we're going to see the, branches of the Judgment Day kind of start to crumble, and we see a new Judgment Day with Liv Morgan in the group. I think, as far as WWE goes, when it comes to building matches and building storylines, it's very long-term based. It's not short-term. It's very long-term based. And I think what you're going to see is Dom betray Rhea Ripley and side with Liv, and we're going to see Liv in the Judgment Day and Rhea get kicked out. I think, Rhea doesn't really need to be in Judgment Day anymore. I mean, she's getting cheered, like, and that same thing I think is going to happen with Damian because they're turning him face, and I love him being the world champion. He just looks like a world champion. Him cashing in Money in the Bank, like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of Money in the Bank, but that was a great moment. So the Money in the Bank does provide great moments for wrestlers, but um, Damian just he looks and feels like a world champion. I hate to say that they're going to take the belt off of him, but I don't think they built up Gunther just to have him lose at SummerSlam. I think Gunther's going to get the world championship. He'll go into Bash in Berlin with the title and go into Bad Blood, Survivor Series, and all the other PLEs that are coming up as world champion, and probably not lose that world title for a while. Just like how he did with the Intercontinental Championship, which it'll be cool to see what WWE does with a championship run, a world championship run with Gunther. But that's the way I'm kind of looking at SummerSlam is the fall of the Judgment Day. James, in fairness to Dom, he was a good boy till that last moment. Yeah, he kind of disputed, hanging out with Liv and all this and that, but Balor and JD have kind of come around to liking Liv Morgan, the same with Carlito, who was in the Judgment Day. So there's definitely, this tension that WWE had this last year with the Judgment Day when Balor was challenging Rollins for the world title. Um, and I don't think WWE quite capitalized on that momentum that they could have done with a Judgment Day split up. And now I think you will see something along those lines with WWE going forward with this Judgment Day storyline. I think you do see the tension reach a breaking point where there's betrayals in the group, and Damian and Rhea end up getting kicked out of Judgment Day, which would be pretty interesting to see how that would end up playing out for Raw, and to see who would last in Judgment Day and who wouldn't. So on WWE's end, I'm not too worried about the storytelling that they're doing. Obviously, there's things that can be better always. Not everything's going to be perfect, but the storylines that they have, there's no like set in stone. This is predictable kind of thing, like how it kind of used to be for used to be for a while. So I'm glad that WWE have kind of done a lot of branching stuff. There's a lot of different elements to storylines where it's not just a set ending to one of them. There's a lot of things that can happen with WWE. Looking at the AEW side as well, I think they're starting to turn up their storytelling, and going into All In, you're going to see probably AEW be like they're going to have their best show, I think, at All In 2024. And that's not me overhyping it. That's just me saying that the stories that they've been building, MJF, Osprey, I really dig that right now. And the stuff with Tony Storm, I mean, Mariah May's a heel basically now, and Tony Storm's going to be the face with the whole Timeless thing. I think that's super cool. Um, I'm really I'm really happy that they're doing that because for me, a big downside was I felt like sometimes they don't do so much with the storytelling. And now I think AEW, with people coming back from injury or just time off like Hangman, when they get guys coming back in that are main event players, um, like MJF, who came in and kind of made an impact, you're gonna see um, you're gonna see, the dial kind of get tuned up now, and that's what is gonna happen with AEW um, when it comes to All In. I have confidence in what they do when it comes to this show. I missed this comment from James, but WWE definitely cooled down a potential split of Judgment Day last year, but now this feels like a committed push to it. I definitely agree. Um, there was always the reports from last year about Vince being kind of back in the company and taking over creative. I think that had definitely an effect on what WWE was trying to do before WrestleMania 39 when he kind of came back in. And he probably already kind of came back in a little bit before that, but Now, I think WWE can be committed to doing the split of the Judgment Day, to, um, you know, really going after the split, and also having Damian and Rhea be faces now, but more over than they ever were. Even before the Judgment Day, they weren't as over as they are now. So the potential for them to be top baby faces and to have new people on that main event scene is so good right now. WWE is very top heavy, which kind of sucks if you're a young performer wanting to be in there and make it in WWE. But at the end of the day, I love the main event scene that they have. It's such a developed main event scene, and definitely something that you're gonna look back on, especially this year of wrestling, and be like, wow, this was professional wrestling this year. So this is definitely a prime era for wrestling in general. Um, and the other thing I kind of forgot to mention was Solo Sokoa pinned Cody Rhodes. So that prediction of mine came to fruition. What chances does Solo Sokoa really have of becoming WWE champion? Right now, the answer is no. I don't think Solo Sikoa is going to win the WWE Championship off of Cody Rhodes. I just don't see that happening whatsoever. And the reason why is because Roman Reigns is coming back soon. And I don't think the bloodline needs the world championship. We've already seen Roman Reigns carry this title for 3.5 years. We don't really need the bloodline with world championship on it. With that said, though, Solo Sikoa is a guy that probably is going to win the belt in the future. I think he will be WWE champion once a couple things transpire. There's not like a whole lot of people that are sold on him in this top heel role, but I will say is that I think over time Solo will get more comfortable being in that spot. They didn't have him talk for a long time, and now he's trying to talk and cut promos like how Roman did. So people are obviously going to be, not too on board with it because they haven't really been sold on it. So I think the more as time goes on, we get Roman Reigns back, we get The Rock back, you're going to see, more things transpire. So that's just what I'm kind of thinking. Um, Solo could be potentially um, coming up in the future, not immediately, but I do think Solo can be a world champion. When you look at Cody Rhodes' championship run, to me, it just felt like it just started, and kind of still has. I think Cody at least has a year with that world championship to the point where he's going to be carrying that into WrestleMania 41 to probably wrestle The Rock. And then after WrestleMania 41 happens, I do think WWE may experiment with having Cody, you know, well, not even just having Cody lose, but who could be potentially the one to defeat Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. I think that will be kind of thought about as we get closer past WrestleMania 41 and that year point. I don't know if WWE want to have Cody be a champion for how long Roman had the title. I don't know if that's such a great idea either, but you never know. You never know when it comes to wrestling. But if I had to make a prediction, I think Cody will have the championship at least for a year. So I don't think Solo Sokoa, has a huge opportunity of beating Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. And, you know, it's no discredit to Solo. It's just I think WWE are going to build up that bloodline angle to where the world championship doesn't even need to be in, that in that stratosphere. Doesn't need to be in the bloodline angle. So I think that's where WWE kind of go when it comes to talking, bloodline, when it comes to looking at, different things when it comes to Solo Roman Reigns, The Rock. They definitely don't need to have the WWE Championship surrounding that. As far as anything else I really wanted to talk about on today's show, I'm trying to think if there's anything uh, else big that happened. I mean, I'll look through the news real quick. Um, we talked about Cena. We talked about Stephanie Vakir joining WWE. We talked about Ronda Rousey posted some more comments on what she thinks about WWE and Vince McMahon. Uh, Bailey wants Evolution 2, which would be interesting. That was WWE's women's all PLE. They did back in 2018. That would be really interesting to see how that goes. Other than that, I'm not seeing anything too crazy right now in terms of the, wrestling rumors or confirmed news or anything. Obviously, we got SmackDown tomorrow, so I'm sure there's going to be some new bloodline developments and new developments for Cody Rhodes. You got Tiffany Stratton with Miss Money in the Bank, which is going to be fun to see, what she does with that briefcase. And maybe she walks out a SummerSlam champion. Who knows? There's going to be a lot of different things happening when it comes to the pro wrestling landscape. And you can hear all about this every week with the Scoop Slam Report every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be getting out of here today. Again, apologies for the Robert Martyr thing. Fortunately, we kind of missed out on that with the scheduling conflict, but I'm hoping that down the road he will be back on the show. So thank you to everyone who checked out this show for today. Make sure to hit the likes and make sure to hit the subscribe button to the Anthony Leonetti Show. Consider becoming a member as well. You can look at our membership platforms on the channel, and I'll catch you all very soon on the next episode of the Scoop Slam Report. Thanks, everyone.